I got a little bit of time after work today, so I'm out here at the battle site, and so far I've gotten two nice looking musket balls. They're drops, and been digging a little bit of iron here and there, but this was a pretty good iron signal, and it is a iron canister shot. It looks slightly smaller than the other ones, so I don't know if it's a different caliber, or I have no idea, but that's going to clean up real nice and look good in the collection. All right, on to the next. Hey diggers, I thought I'd take a few moments to show you how I clean up some of my iron objects. If you look right here, these are some of the iron canister shot that I found the other day when I was out detecting. And the trick is, how do you get it to looking like that? And so I'm going to show you step by step how I clean and preserve these iron artifacts. So the first step is we want to get rid of all this concretion. Now you may not know this, but whenever a metal object is buried in the ground, it creates a very weak electrical current. And the electrical current draws impurities towards it, and it sticks, and it becomes a conglomerate. And that's what you see here, this big chunky mess. So we can probably get about 90% of that off by just tapping it with this little hammer. And the nice thing about cannonballs and these little canister shot is you can't hurt them. You can beat them all day with the hammer and it doesn't hurt them in any way. So what I like to do is just knock the majority of the crust off. And sometimes I use the pointed end of the hammer because it deals a sharper blow. And here you can see the metal starting to show through. So after I've knocked the majority of the rust and the concretion off, and I can see a good chunk of the original metal, the next step will be to do electrolysis. Here's what they look like with all the rust hammered off and all the concretion. You can see most of the original metal. There's some pockets with rust. You can kind of see the little divots in there. I imagine that when these were cast, they were not cast with great expertise. They were probably just quickly made with whatever iron scraps they had available, and then melted and shoved in those cannonballs or mortar rounds or whatever they're called, the canisters. So anyway, now I'll go over and show you how I rig these up for electrolysis. All right, here's my electrolysis setup. I have a very basic battery charger. It is an old style analog. It is not digital. Do not use digital because a digital charger will sense that there's no battery and it will automatically shut off. This is basic 6 volt, 12 volt, high and low. Here's a tank I use just for the water. And to receive the charge, I use these barbecue tongs. I think they work pretty good. So I usually just set them in the water like that. And you attach the red one to the receiver. And the black one, of course, will go to the transmitter. What do I put in the water for the solution? This is all you should use. Arm & Hammer washing soda. Do not use salt. Do not use baking soda. These are not good. They're dangerous, especially salt, because it creates chlorine gas, and you don't want to breathe that naturally. All right, so the amount I put in here is very little, just a couple tablespoons. It doesn't take a lot. And I just kind of stir it up a little bit, and that's more than enough. Now for the iron object that I'm doing electrolysis on, this canister shot is perfectly round, and you may recall I knocked most of the rust off. I've wrapped the wire around it, and the most important thing is that the wire has to come into contact with the bare metal. It cannot get through rust. if you have a rust-covered object, you must scrape down to the metal itself in order to get contact. Now this wire, because it's perfectly round, isn't making maximum contact. So I take this little hammer right here and I just very lightly tap the wire to force it to take to the shape of the object, and it also flattens it out a little bit so I get a better contact. And I just put it in the solution, only a couple inches away from the receiver. You don't want them touching. And then I just hook the black electrode like that. All right, and then I'll plug this in. Okay, if you look down here, you can see bubbles, not only coming off of the wire, but also coming off of the iron object. If the bubbles are only coming off of the wire, you're not getting a good contact and electricity is not flowing through the iron object. But in this case, you can clearly see the bubbles are coming up from the canister shot. So I will leave this running probably for an hour and check it again, 2 hours tops, and then we'll get back to you. Okay, it looks like it's bubbling pretty good. It's been well over an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, and we'll take it into the sink to scrub it with a wire brush. Okay, so see how the black is coming off on my fingers? That's a good sign. So I'll remove the wire, and then it's just a little wire brush here. What I'm doing is I'm scrubbing off any of the crustation that's still on there. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I can see a little bit still in the pits, but we'll get that out with the Dremel. But yeah, oops, I always drop them. All right, so we'll let that dry and we'll get back to you in just a minute. Okay, here are the 3 canister shots after electrolysis. And you'll see the surface is a little bit pitted. And within each pit, you can see a little bit of rust. And the way I get that little bit of rust out, here's a good example. So I use a Dremel tool with the wire brush on it. Sometimes the pits are so deep you can't get it all out, but that's okay. If a little bit gets left, it's not the end of the world. So I go around each ball and I clean as much of the rust out as I can, and you can see the black powder coming off. That's just, I think it's carbon from where the electrolysis process took place. It can wash off, but you can also just take it off with the Dremel. Okay, and I'll do that on all 3 of them, and then I'll get back with you on the next step. Okay, I've got the 3 canister shots all cleaned up with the Dremel, and they're nice and shiny. There's still a little tiny bits of rust left in the deepest pockets, but I'm not really too concerned about that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to seal them to cut off all the oxygen. I use this Rust-Oleum acrylic enamel, and I just give them a really good coat, and seals them up, and they end up looking pretty nice. Okay, I'll let that dry, and then I'll turn it around and do the other side. Well, diggers, that's how I do my electrolysis, and that's the finished product. I'll put these in the display case with the others, and right now I'm going to go and show you some of the other iron objects I have found and cleaned. So here's some of the iron items I found out at the battle site. This is a 5.5 pound cannonball. I actually found 2 of those, but I gave one to my detecting friend. Grape shot, or canister shot actually. 3 different sizes. I got 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and 1.5 inch. There's another 1.5 inch here. Fragments of, I guess the hollow cannonballs are called mortars, but they shot out lead pellets. And here's some of the lead pellets that they shot out, musket balls. And these are fired musket balls. They're all pretty well distorted. And this is a horseshoe. May or may not be from the battle. I mean, it's definitely an early horseshoe, 1700s, hand forged, but I can't say for sure it's from the battle. This is a heel plate from a riding boot. Could be from the battle, maybe not. Could be later, could be earlier. And this is a hand forged strap that goes around a wooden beam. You can see right there where it goes from thin to thick is where the pieces were hammered together. This would have been like either on a wagon or a hand cart or maybe a cannon, I don't know, but it would have been on the end of the beam to keep the wood from splitting. So that's kind of neat. And then over here, some other iron objects. These are blacksmith hammers from medieval times that I found. Actually, this one was laying on top of the ground. Another detectorist had found it and left it laying on a tree stump. Not real, it was a big rusty blob, but I recognized it as a blacksmith's hammer. It's called a creasing hammer. This is a bill hook from the 1500s, and it has a hallmark right there. It's a circle with a cross in it. You can kind of see it right there. And this dates to early 1500s. And I got axe heads. It's hard to date the axe heads. My guess is be 1600s, 1700s, or 1800s. They all have nice maker's marks on them. I think that one has, it looks like an H or something. And then if you look, it actually has four maker's marks. It has 1, 2, 3, and then a very small round one right here. So it has 4 marks. It's kind of a cool axe head. And this one busted in half. You can see why it failed, but it has a cartouche here and then a small shield shaped maker's mark there. So that's a nice one. This is a sickle blade, and its maker's mark is an arrowhead with the letter I in it. So it makes me wonder if the guy who made this also made arrowheads and spearheads, like he was an armorer maybe. But yeah, arrowhead with the letter I. Of course, back then in the 1500s and 1600s, the I would be pronounced like a J because the letter J had not been invented yet. Here's a 3-pound cannonball that I found at another battle site from 1794. And these are medieval horseshoes that I found. These were not at the battle site. I've just found these out when I've been detecting in the woods. So, very cool looking. I just like the look of them. I never thought I'd enjoy finding horseshoes. And one more thing I wanted to show you. Now, I didn't find these, but I traded for them. These are crossbow bolts from the 1100s to the 1300s. They're designed to pierce armor. And these would have been fired from those huge, like 150-pound pull crossbows. So I did electrolysis on them and cleaned them up, and I love them. They're a favorite part of my collection. Well, there you have it. Oh, gosh, I can't believe I forgot to talk about this. This is my oldest iron relic that I have. You can see how the blacksmith made it. You can see here where he split the tip and bent one down. In this part, he flattened out and folded it around because that's where it would go on the wood staff. This is a pole hook, and it actually dates to the very early medieval, between 500 and 1000 AD. So that's my oldest iron relic. I actually found this at a Roman site, and at first a couple of people I showed it to thought it was actually Roman, but the more people I showed it to, the more they convinced me that it's early medieval. But that's really cool. You can see how the blacksmith hammered out this tip and put a nice bevel on it. It's a beautiful piece of work. He made a hole right there so you could attach it to the staff. But in early warfare, this was a primary weapon. Can you imagine riding a horse at full gallop and a guy with this on a 6-foot pole snags you and yanks you off the horse, then stabs you with it and kills you? Alright, that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Click the like button below and leave a comment. On to the next.